Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to WeatherBrains episode 475, the pre-show for Monday, March the 2nd. I told everybody to wait. The conversation is so good, this needs to be on the pre-show. We're talking about redecorating my office. Aubrey is giving us some decorating ideas. You see, it's like, it needs some help in here. I mean, I got wires coming out of the monitors over here. I mean...
So we can put a little shelf. We need to put a little shelf there to cover up some of the wires. We need some DIFAX charts. We need a big SKU-T chart. We need some maps.
Exactly.
And we need a good-sized fathead logo. You can have your University of Alabama logo there, maybe behind the wall. We'll get some hooks.
No,
hooks
I can't do that.
Oh, that's
death.
50% of the audience.
Yeah,
how about some hair on the wall?
Hair would be good.
You could do mix and match hair, like put your face and then what kind of hair you want to have for the day, like a.
I like it. You know, this has great potential.
A span fathead. I like that. It's like you have on the side of that RV y'all drive around in now.
Exactly.
James.
And where will you keep the hat, Aubrey?
Oh, we'll keep the hat. The hat always goes on the hook behind the door.
The hat is up there.
There seemed to be more call than I usually see this event. Was there for the hat, or is that always the way it is?
It typically stays up there.
No, I mean, but there was more. Seemed to be more people calling for it this time. Is that wrong? Or?
Oh yeah, no. There's like instant demand for this hat. I mean, it's like.
But always, or just on this latest event?
I will say it's been unusually high for this latest event.
That's what I'm wondering. Why is that?
I think people start watching these old YouTube videos. They get kind of excited. For those that don't know, that's Kevin's hat he wore in the blizzard of 1993, which amazingly is 22 years ago.
Wow.
There were so many comparisons to that event by people, so maybe that's what it was, Kevin. We started talking about double-digit snowfall amounts. It was pretty impressive.
I see. That's interesting.
So I'm kind of excited about this show. We're going to do a homegrown show tonight. No guests. This is great. We haven't done one of these in a long time. I'm very excited. I'm pumped. I think this could be the greatest show we've done in a long time. We could like interview each other.
It's not a real high bar, so.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So we have a new general manager here at the TV station, or we have an opening for the GM slot. So you don't know what that means. Wow. Yeah.
What happened to my friend?
He's moving to KMOV in St. Louis, Channel 4.
Gannett.
Yes, I think it's Gannett, or is it?
No, you're right.
Meredith. It's Meredith.
Yeah, KMOX is Gannett, I think.
Because he used to work for Meredith in Nashville at Channel 4 WSMV, so it's Meredith. So we'll have a new. There's an opening for a GM here.
I could do it. I'll be your new GM.
I wish you would apply, please.
First thing I would do is redecorate your office.
Yeah, get something back here on this wall. This is great. No, you never. I've been working for this guy for 12 years. So who knows what happens? They might sweep me out. We'll see. So I think this is everybody. So I'm excited. We can actually go on the air now if we wanted to. Nate's missing. But Brian is going to work the morning shift.
We're doing a podcast. You want to come say hi?
Who is this?
Come say hi.
This is our new Fox anchor.
Hi, nice to meet you.
This is Stephanie Garland. And this is Aubrey and a bunch of guys that aren't really matter.
That's the nice to meet y'all.
This is our WeatherBrains podcast
Oh, sweet.
that we do every Wednesday night. You're being broadcast to the world right now. Are you nervous? It's probably a bigger audience. It's probably a bigger audience than the Fox show.
Oh gosh, now I am nervous.
And it's international. So.
Oh man, nice to meet y'all.
Y'all.
I'm sorry, I interrupted. What were y'all talking about?
Oh, Kevin, it's good to know where you stand. I thank you for that.
Yeah. You know I love you guys. It's just Aubrey's so much better looking. That was one of the reasons.
Not next to James.
Oh, please.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wait a minute, I got to get my shovel out here.
So, I think the new Photos app has a memory leak.
Oh.
This is not good.
What determines that? What is the tip off?
Little box comes up and says you've run out of application memory. You don't have any left, and I've got 16 gigs in this thing. 16 gigs of RAM. That's not good.
So why do you point to the photos though?
I pulled up Activity Monitor.
Oh.
It tells you what's going on here. Now, in fact, they released it publicly today as a public beta. Anybody that wants to use that can have, photos takes the place of Aperture, and
right.
It's kind of like everything else. It's not a true pro app, but it's pretty good. It's for what I need. I think it's going to work pretty good. So yeah, once we get the cable TV guys going, we'll start here. I've killed out photos, and I think I have my memory back. Got to get Nate, and we're good. Kevin, you feeling better?
I'm on the mend. I had a bit of a relapse or associated relapse over the weekend. Kind of knocked me down again.
Right in the middle of snow and ice and everything else, huh?
I missed the first event, and then I was around for the end of the week, and then I was back in the hospital on Saturday. So.
Oh.
Wow. Well, you're a trooper for being here.
Well.
Go ahead.
No, I was just go ahead. I was just gonna make some wise guy comment like I usually do.
Yeah, that's about all I was gonna do. And I totally forgot to mention for those people that are watching the YouTube version here, this is where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and typically
and
waste a few minutes. Yeah, kidney stone stories. So the minute we hit the cable, we are going to roll this. We are going to start on time. We're going to get out on time. I feel it in my bones. So Bill, our guest backed out. Is that the story? Do we need to go?
Well, there never was
Moose
a
and Rocco?
terrible. Well, it's like you couldn't really get a commitment. Something we've been working on for a month. And I kept pushing for an answer, and then this morning I get an email that says, "Oh, well, we can't do it tonight. We'll have to schedule another time." Well, we used to just deal directly with him. And now we have to go through a handler.
I need a handler. That's what I need.
I think you do too, James. You need a handler.
So you've got a mic behind you as well as a mic in front of you. What is this for?
Well, no, I just
noises coming out of your backside there. Or what?
I wanted to be able to see my computer screens. So anyway, I've got to rearrange all that eventually. So I just went back to my Heil, which is my
you got a PR20 in front of you. What is that mic behind you back there?
Electro Voice.
Yeah, it's
EV.
just a big. The cool thing about it is the boom. You can move it around anywhere and keep it out of the way. It's nice. But anyway, I just I'm getting my little weather office set up. But I wanted to be able to see the computer screens tonight.
Your back wall is crappy like mine.
Yeah, it is.
There's nothing back
a lot of
here.
work to go.
We have nothing.
Angle. My entire weather library is over here to the right, which is like it looks like 5,000 weather books, which is kind of cool. But anyway,
Brian, right? How come you're here?
Brian's got to work the morning shift, and he's decided that he has to get his beauty sleep. I don't know what happened to the regular morning guy. I think he's sick. So Brian, the Colonel is coming in. The Colonel Sanders is coming in to work the morning shift.
Tough shift.
Yeah, it's that's bad. All right, I think we are up. So here we go in. Let me answer this text. Hang on. It's for my wife.
Answer it.
It's a friend of hers who needs to go to Jackson, Tennessee. And they're
Wednesday night.
Yeah, basically that's it.
No, don't go.
That's what I'm saying. Just go tomorrow. Don't even think about it.
Exactly.
All
Got
right.
good rime icing pictures on our tower if you want to look at my Twitter feed.
I love rime ice pictures. Hang on here. Let's record
one. Good one from yesterday, and then I did a time lapse of it melting today.
Cool. All right, here we go. Stand by in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. WeatherBrains! Ladies and gentlemen, time for the weekly show all about weather. This is WeatherBrains episode number 475 for the 2nd of March, 2015. We are into meteorological spring. Just saying that sounds so good.
Wow.
Not that it's going to make the weather warmer, but it still sounds good. By the way, I mean, this is 475, and we're almost to 500.
I know, in almost to 10 years. That's what's crazy. I was talking about that tonight.
10 years, 500 shows.
And
we
never
need to do
missed a
something
show,
special.
James. Never missed a show.
Wow.
Wow.
We have gone out of our way to be sure every week has a new show. Sometimes we dog the schedule around a little bit, but we get them out. We have done 475, so we're approaching 10 years, 500 shows. Who'd have thunk it? But I'm excited about this show because we're just going to do a homegrown show. Occasionally, we do the show with no guests, just us. And this is where it gets kind of wild and raunchy, and this could be a really good show. Aubrey Urbanowitz is in edit booth number
4.
4. So what's happening at WHSB Television?
Oh, it was nice out today. Got a lot done this weekend on the house. My husband and I think we're going to start a side business building. He does woodworking and stuff, so we're thinking about, when I retire, and we start up this little business that's never going to make us enough money as what we're actually making, but we like to think like that. So he's been working on some projects at home, and I've been painting them, and we've been doing that. It was nice today. Man, it was nice today. And we have quite the storm system heading our way.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. We got another complex storm system on the way.
I can't
Kevin
believe
Shelley is
What's
the
going-
it all comes from Kevin. He originates this stuff.
Yep.
Yep.
Sends it east. So Kev, what is headed our way from
I'm going
Wichita
to
Falls, Texas?
I'm going to vote that we, in order to preserve our never missing a week streak, that once we hit 500, that we stop.
That's an idea. We can just shut it down. I mean, we've interviewed everybody. There's nothing else to say. We're done. We'll see you
like
later.
Costanza going out on a high note. That's it. We're done.
That's it.
We're out of here.
I like that. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just, 2 hours northwest of Dallas-Fort Worth now, and this is where these things, get going, get wound up, and it's fascinating here how much of a difference there is between Dallas-Fort Worth and Wichita Falls, and then Cheerwine that Nate is drinking.
Now, what is Nate doing over there? Nate joined the podcast through this.
Apparently, Google Hangouts doesn't recognize the Cheerwine can opening mute algorithm is not working. But anyway, it's fascinating here just because these things are organized. I mean, there's every storm is complicated, right? But when one is organizing, there are just so many little factors where 10, 20, 30 miles here there make such a big difference, and it's been really, really interesting here. So I'm enjoying it.
So I want to ask Kevin some nosy personal questions. And this is my chance to just interview the gang here. So you're coming from a statewide network in Dallas to a local broadcast station in Wichita Falls. What's the biggest adjustment you had to make for this?
Well,
people actually watch him.
Yeah. Actually, it's been very interesting here because we were carried. TXEN is carried in this market on the local cable station. And that's one of the reasons that they, I think that they asked me to come up is there was a certain recognition factor already in the market. And I've had a number of people come to me and say, oh, yes, we knew you from, TXCN, which I think was somewhat comforting, because the previous guy was here for 32 years. So they were kind of worried about making that transition from somebody who's just been here, half of a lifetime, and people were so comfortable with. So I think that recognition factor was good. But this will sound silly, and people don't know. Most people don't know TXEN, but one of the things that was so different that I really enjoyed is we broke the state up into zones on our forecast products, and for the extended forecast, we never evolved to 7 days. We just stayed on a 5-day forecast thing because it was just too much trouble. And going back or starting really doing a 7-day forecast is horrible. It's just horrible because you want to. I mean, I do. Maybe I'm paying too much attention, but you want to come in and look at days 6 and 7 and really give people an idea. I mean, a legitimate attempt at a forecast, but I would glance at that stuff, but I never had to really pay super close attention to it from a public presentation standpoint. And so that has been exceptionally difficult, or frustrating, I should say.
Yeah, I understand. So what's your approach? You're on the cutting edge of the societal change and communication. Your weather segments, are they different? And if they are different, in what way?
That's an interesting question. I've been listening to what you've been saying, especially about your 4 o'clock show lately. This market, it's a very small town. The news, well, I think the overall population and the news viewership skews much older. It's a heavy older population in this town, and as you have rightly observed, even on making changes on your 4 o'clock show, a lot of older viewers, and I don't mean that in an insulting way, don't like a lot of change. And again, given the history of the guy that was here, I didn't really want to come in here guns a-blazing and make a lot of changes and upset people. I'll tell you what has been the most fascinating thing, and I was actually going to put up a blog post about this on the Digital Meteorologist blog here sometime this week. I inherited a graphics package with our weather system, and I don't really like it. It's not horrible, but it's old, and I think it kind of is restrictive in what we can do on the forecast graphics today and tonight and things like that. But I'm not really in a position right now, right out of the gate, to change it. But one of the things that I love in my personal life is taking pictures. I just am a big photography buff, and since I've had my DSLR, I've taken thousands and thousands of pictures over the last couple of years, and I like to share them on some social media sites and whatnot. So what I started doing was using some of my own personal pictures around town as I've been exploring and things like that as the background for the forecast graphics. And before I put them up, I'll just put a full screen shot of the picture and say this is what it is, or Wichita Mountains, or something around town, or whatever it is. And then I'll put the forecast up with those things in the background as opposed to the generic one that was here. And other than Welcome to Town, it is far and away the most commented thing that I have had people say things to me about. They'll come up to me and they'll say, "Oh, we missed Skip, but you're doing a nice job," or "Welcome to Wichita Falls. We're so happy you're here." And I bet 7 out of 10 times the last comment is, "Oh, and we really enjoyed the pictures that you're showing us," which has been stunning to me because I just did it mostly to be a troublemaker or to be a rebel or just to share a little bit and do something different. But people seem to be really enjoying it. And the premise of my post that's coming up on Digital Meteorologist, and this again dovetails a little bit, I think, with some of the things you're trying on that 4 o'clock show, is that as the audience continues to fracture and Partly Cloudy 72 as a product is available in 1 million places, one of the things that we have left that differentiates us is our personalities and our passions. And so one of the premises of my post is that I think that people will appreciate it, your viewers will appreciate it. If you find one of your passions, not necessarily using pictures, to change up the forecast graphics, but find a passion and show it on TV. Because I have just been stunned at the response from people. And that's a much longer answer to your question than you wanted, but I really can't emphasize enough how interesting and informative that has been for me.
No, and I will second that. Again, as a TV weather guy, on our early newscast, we have an hour block at 4 o'clock Central Time, and I told them I don't want to go in front of the green wall. Come on, this Ron Burgundy, Brick Tamlin, good evening, sunny skies. Come on, let's do something different. So I just stand there and talk with the news anchor of that show, who I've known for years. We worked together off and on since the late 70s, and we know each other very well. And I show a lot of pictures. Now, these are not pictures I take like Kevin. These are pictures from Joe Q Public and Twitter, and I get more comments about the pictures I show at 4 o'clock than anything else. And just something about it clicks, and it works very well. And I do the weather segment on an iPad. I used one graphic off the system the 7-day, and that's about it on most normal days. And I will agree that there's something about that I think people like. And again, the 4 o'clock segment has worked out very well for us.
I am really I'm really stunned by this because, again, what I'm sensing and what you're experiencing, I think they dovetail together. And what I'm questioning now is there's clearly a shift coming in presentation. And what I haven't yet figured out is there a shift in what people want? Or to put it bluntly, have we been feeding them something that they really didn't want for the past 40 years? Now, I've said for years that we evolved the presentation that we have now, which hasn't really changed very much in many, many years. I think a lot of the changes that have come over the past 10, 20 years have been motivated more by the expanding computer capabilities of the vendors, the graphics vendors, who need to sell new product and push stuff out the door, rather than something that was needed or desired or wanted or necessary for the public. Does that make sense?
It does. And let me just bring in Nate Johnson and John Scala, and of course Aubrey's here. These are all.
I'm sorry, guys. I took the
Look, I'm just being selfish and nosy. We're talking about the future of television weather. So Nate Johnson, you've got 2.5 minutes to do a television weather segment. What do you do different, or do you do anything different?
No, I have yet to meet Kevin. He keeps threatening to meet me, and I keep threatening to run into him, and it just hasn't happened for various reasons. And one of these days we need to fix that. But the more I listen to him, and it's good that he's turning away and he's going to pull his earbuds out because I'm gonna blow some smoke up his skirt.
Go.
The more I listen to him, the smarter I realize he is. And I've always known he's a smart guy, but I just tweeted, if you're in TV, you need to be listening tonight because Kevin is dropping some truth bombs. This is absolutely.
I don't drop anything else.
Well, that's good.
No,
except
kidding.
the mic. You might drop the mic.
I'm kidding.
No, but seriously, if you look at the weather presentations, and one of the things that I teach in my broadcast meteorology course is a history of TV weather. And it's, you have to condense it down to one lesson, but you have to know where you've come from in order to have a sense of where you are and what direction you're going. And Kevin's absolutely right. I mean, yes, we've advanced the graphics presentation, but and I think you've seen in the last 15 or 20 years, you've seen a shift from a graphically advanced flight briefing, which is what we were doing 20 years ago, 25 years ago. It was forecast funnel driven. It was a flight briefing. The pilot would be at home with this. On the other hand, in the last 10 or 15 years, you've seen a shift toward the whole weather story idea, where you're looking at the weather and you're trying to elicit out some theme or some topic and centering your show around that. And while I think that is absolutely a good direction to go, it's still variations on a theme. It's a spin-off. It's Frasier. It is
Yes.
what Frasier was to Cheers. It's a spin-off, but it's the same format. It's the same thing. And the reason that I think Kevin and James are getting the sort of feedback they are on on these picture segments and on the use of pictures is different. It's something that's not part of the standard thing. And the news people would say, well, geez, or the TV guys would say, well, geez, we've been preaching this differentiation thing forever, and this is all it is. This is more than that, and I think
I agree.
Kevin's onto something. I think you're onto something in the sense that we are, the weather information for the most part is commoditized. You can get it anywhere, and it may vary here and there, but for the most part, people tell us they want accurate, but they want to be told it's accurate. But they're not willing, by and large, to do the research to figure out who actually is accurate, or else they wouldn't be using the bloody app on the phone. Mm-hmm. They'd be hitting the weather service probably, or they would care about these sorts of things. So, yes, we want it to be accurate, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have somebody with some personality, with some pizzazz, something different that I can connect to, somebody I feel like that I can, sit down and invite in my living room and sit down on the couch and we can have a beer together and talk about the weather and whatever else we're interested in, and the weather information just sort of comes with it.
Let me drop this on you real quick because I'm going to listen, but I got to go do graphics for the 9 o'clock show. Because this occurred to me over the weekend, and again, I sent James a note on it. But it occurred to me that his 4 o'clock show, in many ways now, is and you all know how much this pains me to say this, has become the Facebook news feed.
Yep.
Because the Facebook news feed is a curated feed. So, I mean, in James's case, the human is filtering it. He's the algorithm. But what Facebook is really trying to do, as much as I hate them, they are trying to give each individual user a customized best experience based on what they want. And so my question to James was, is this all of a sudden a Facebook news feed that you're doing on the 4 o'clock show? And as they say on the radio, I'll hang up and listen.
I'm hang up and listen. I think there's something to that. And if you look at what Facebook is trying to do, and let's set aside for a minute how marketers especially and brands attempt to game the Facebook algorithm. But if you strip all of that out for a second and figure out what Facebook is trying to do, they're trying to use what your friends look at and what your friends engage with to try and serve up to you things that they think you'll like. Now, we know, and I've seen paper after paper after paper, and there's a guy who finished his doctorate over at UNC Chapel Hill who wrote a program that it goes in and it looks at your friends and can tell you how you voted on the last election based on who your friends are. So if we know just based on who my friends are how I'm going to vote in 2016, certainly my friends are putting far more than just political information in there. They're liking things I post, and I'm liking things they post. There's all this engagement and all this massive bit of data, and you can use that to feed me a steady stream of stuff that I'm going to be interested in. And it's going to be different. That's the thing that television has never been able to do and will never be able to do, is because we have to slate up a 30-minute newscast that has to appeal to everybody. And we can't do it. It's not possible anymore. So instead what we're using is the power of the network and the idea of the long tail, and the fact that, I had this conversation with a friend of mine this weekend. It used to be that I was the guy that got a new thing, whatever it was, and I would explore this thing. Probably the last thing I did that with was the Chromecast. I'm that guy that just hacked it all. Most other people don't care that much. They just want to know that it's cool, it's neat. They want to know that they've got a buddy that can answer questions about it and that says that it's good, and then that's good enough for them. And that's it. And there's all sorts of sociology and communication theories about this, the diffusion of innovation and opinion leaders and all this kind of stuff. And this is all that is. It's just playing out in an algorithmic format. On Facebook, you're letting your people in your network who care about certain things more than you do, in a sense, feed you stuff that you're going to be tangentially interested in, and it's going to keep you interested. And Facebook certainly has an interest in keeping you plugged in. So they're going to continue to improve the algorithm. It's going to get better and better and better. There are side effects to that I don't want to go into in terms of echo chambers and whatnot. But that's something that television has never really been able to do on a widespread basis. And what it sounds like James is doing tonight, or with the 4 o'clock news, and I haven't seen it yet, but is that you're doing some curating for an audience, and it's, number one, it's different, and it's visual. Television loves visual stuff, so you're putting up pictures and that sort of thing, and it just gives something, it's a different spin on things.
John Scala, what do you do different in your 2.5 minutes compared to what you did 10 or 20 years ago?
You guys have been in television a whole lot longer than I have, and I was in full-time when I was at the Weather Channel, and that was really the last time that I did full-time weather. Now I do fill-in stuff, I do some special stuff, but it's funny you should mention 2.5 minutes. When I worked Saturday night, the producer says to me, you know what, I just lost one of my packages. How long can you talk? Well, how long do you want me to talk? I used to teach a 2-hour class. It's not hard. So I actually had 4 minutes.
I could double the amount of time you normally give me and not even break a sweat. Come on now.
Yeah, no issues there. But to keep with the conversation, that's exactly the way I do. I'm looking at the camera. That's not a camera to me. that's a friend of mine, and I'm having a conversation with that friend about something that just totally intrigues me. And the way I started my main weather off on Saturday night was, did you see the temperatures in northwestern Pennsylvania? Minus 27 degrees on Saturday morning. How cold is it? Well, we broke a record for the coldest February since 1888, when records started being kept in Harrisburg. And it turns out that February of 2015 was the 4th coldest month on record. Well, that's some pretty neat stuff to talk about. And then I usually go from there to talk about what's happening nationally, and then how that's going to evolve into what our current weather regime will be, which is ice. I'm so tired of it. It's one ice event after another right now.
Do you remember a couple of years ago, and I think it was a guy from AccuWeather, Kozak, I think, or Bernie Kosar, whatever. Anyway, he's now in Atlanta. But do you remember when he did, it was a snowstorm, and we're all sick of the snow here in North Carolina. We have 2 weeks of it. We're done, and we got more of it coming on Thursday. But he did this thing, and it was talking about how epic this snowstorm was going to be in Baltimore. And you remember he was like screaming, it's like, "Rah, it's going to be epic," and da-da-da-da-da. And that just caught fire. The same thing with a guy in Phoenix who had the numbers show up, 4,000 degrees and whatnot, and he just played with it.
Yeah.
It caught fire because it was different. It allowed these particular meteorologists to riff off and let their personalities really come through.
Right.
And in a way that you don't normally see, because we all feel constrained, to a certain extent by the format. But at the end of the day, we're still, for the most part, the next weathercast, we're going back to the format. We're going back to the same thing we've always done: prettier graphics, more high-resolution data. Maybe we're using the ensembles, which, again, all of these are good directions to go. But we're probably going to be in some trouble if we still think that people are tuning into television to get the 7-day forecast, because they're not.
Right.
They may be tuning in for context. They may be tuning in for an explanation. They may be tuning in to see the whites of our eyes when we're talking about a 6 to 12-inch snowfall in North Carolina in the the last week of February. Those are the things that people are tuning in for right now. But I'm looking for that next big thing that's different, and maybe it's what James is doing. There's just being a little bit different with that, and certainly the Span army of followers feeding him pictures, constantly it's a nice way. It's almost like the AP wires feeding your producers content.
Hey, Aubrey, what do you do in your
Jim Kosick, by the way, was the guy's name. Thank you, Nick Bird on Twitter. Jim Kosick from AccuWeather.
All right, Aubrey, what do you do in your 2.5, 3 minutes on television?
We're restricted to stay in our DMA. So usually what I've been trying to do more recently is lighten the mood a little bit, instead of it was sunny and 55 out today, and tomorrow it's going to be warmer, and then it's going to be cold. I try to loosen up, like when we have a cold front coming through, I'll say, and guess what, tomorrow temperatures, they're going to cool throughout the day. Isn't it fun when it does that? And and just try and lighten the mood a little bit with the viewers. I try to have a little fun with things, especially if I say I'm reading the map and I say 55 and it's really 35 or something like that. But I think what John was saying, when you're looking at the camera and you're talking to the viewer and you're relating to them, so they get the feeling that you are in their living room and you're giving them your advice on, this is how I would dress tonight if you're heading out, this is how I would dress tomorrow, and if you're making plans for the weekend, this is what you need to consider. And I try really hard to convey that, and I forget I'm talking to a camera. And sometimes I forget, I have to be careful what I say, because I forget that I'm talking to a camera. I just feel like I'm either just talking to someone, or I'm kind of talking to myself. So I always start with currents. This is what's going on, or hey, we're 30 degrees warmer than this time yesterday. Isn't that nice? And then I'll go into I don't go into a huge explainer of what's coming our way and what's happening. Sometimes I feel like that gets lost in Maine weather, and some people don't care about that. I don't care about that low over, Oklahoma. I want to know, is it going to rain or snow tomorrow for this ball game? So sometimes I try to keep my maps in a little bit tighter and, go for, what they really need to know. Is this going to affect them in their morning? Is this going to affect them in the afternoon? Or in the summertime, is this going to affect ball games? So I try to concise things a little bit. And then I like to have, a little fun when I talk about the 7-day, either throw in a fun fact or things like that. And I do feel like I feel stringent, but I want to experiment more and change things up. And I'm open to ideas, and I want to change things up.
Bill Murray, you're a digital guy. How do you tackle the problem that everybody knows the weather? They've seen it on their phone. How do you handle that?
Well, you know what Kevin said just a minute ago, really resonated with me. It is sort of a curated Facebook feed. And James, one thing you have to show before we get away from this idea tonight is the picture of the dog. And I guess that's at Smith Lake. It came on Twitter. You retweeted it like Sunday morning. And that is like a Thomas Kincaid picture. If you find that in your Twitter feed, put it up on the screen for us to look at, because that is one of the prettiest pictures I've ever seen.
And I'll say this: I started the 4 o'clock weather segment with that picture today, and that was a photograph taken last week. And the problem I have, we have thousands and thousands, thousands of images that come in, and I can't. There's no way I can look at all of them, and it's going to take me weeks, if not months, to look at all of them after a snow event. But occasionally one just floats by, and that one just, wow, this is unbelievable.
But during the event on Wednesday, of course, I was working it, and we had 695,000 page views in one day, which was just phenomenal. And literally, James, one of the most important tools was monitoring your Twitter feed. And you have to filter that because sometimes there's some crazy things in there, obviously. But there was a lot of great information coming in, and you take that information and confirm it, and then use it. And somebody thought it was good because over 350,000 people looked at the blog last Wednesday, and it's just really amazing how many people are just sitting on our homepage and just refreshing it. And
there's that picture for those that are watching.
It's a gorgeous picture.
This is a great shot.
It's now the background on my computer because it's just beautiful.
But I'll say this too, Bill. It's interesting that it's funny how little memes and stuff people pick up. One of the things I struggle with, people tend not to read what we write. They look at their phone app and they get mad, and when there's a bad forecast, they blame it on you. And I always, whenever people ask me questions, I say read the blog, and that's kind of the read the blog thing is
a meme in itself.
Right. And I was at a school today speaking to some first graders, and one of the teachers loved that, and like her kids, they had these little hats that said "Read the blog" with a hashtag on there. That was awesome. So, it's got a life of its own, but.
And there was nothing else I was going to say, James, about what happened, because it was pretty amazing. Oh, the thing that struck me as amazing, James, and you may not have noticed this, but on Wednesday, 59% of the people that were looking at what we're doing were on mobile. And that sort of struck me. I should have known that, and I should have thought about that, but I still thought we probably had a much higher preponderance of desktop users, but 59% were on mobile at the peak of the event.
Now, the old adage of people using a web browser to access your website, we still think of that, but you're right. I think at the television station here, 70% of the traffic is now mobile that they get on a normal day. And so you've just got to rethink and be sure that what you're putting out there, it works well on phones and things like that. So, but the future, and Bill, I don't mean to sidetrack your discussion. I don't even know what the topic we're supposed to talk about here. I like to chase rabbits.
I like this. I like this better anyway.
Chasing rabbits.
So we're talking about the future of our business, and Nate Johnson, you're dealing with young people. You teach them. What do you tell them? So somebody wants to become a broadcast meteorologist. What do you tell them? What's your advice? I mean, is this business going to survive? What do you do?
Run.
Go into something else.
Run.
Learn to dig ditches. We'll always need more ditches. One of the things I tell them is, for one, they need to get out of the mindset of being institutionalized. We all, those of us that went to meteorology school or went to some sort of schooling, we have been institutionalized. We have been formed in a particular way to think about the weather in a particular manner and to communicate it with, for the most part, other scientists. And we need to break that. You need to recognize that that's happened, and there's nothing wrong with it. You want your doctor to be institutionalized as a doctor. You want your meteorologist to be thinking about that in that way. But when it comes to communicating with real people about this stuff, we need to get out of that mold of the forecast funnel and the flight briefing and I'm briefing a bunch of generals about weather before a bombing run or something like that, and get out of that mode and start thinking about, well, how do real people live their lives? What are they going to use this weather for, and this weather information for, and when picking your battles. I mean, we want to talk about I haven't yet met a meteorologist that didn't get into this business. Very few get into this business and make just killer money. We get into it because we love the weather, because we're fascinated with it, because we're passionate about it, and we need to find a way to connect with people who are not as passionate about it as we are, who see weather as a means to an end, not an end unto itself. We have to be relevant to those people while not losing the passion that we bring to the table. And there are a myriad different ways to do that, but part of it is recognizing that the vast majority of people are not as fascinated with the weather as we are, or else they'd have gone to weather school like we did. We'd have been sitting next to them in dynamics class and drawing skew T's with them back in sophomore year. So we have to recognize that's there, and then find a way still to be relevant to people who may not be as passionate about this stuff as we are, and find a way maybe to connect with them and to share that passion. Maybe we light a fire under somebody and they find a passion for it. But for the most part, we're dealing with folks that aren't, and that's the biggest thing, the biggest challenge that I think too many people in news, too many weather people, conflate the idea that weather is the number one reason that people watch the news with everybody is as passionate about weather as I am. Those two things are not the same thing. They're not equivalent. And we conflate those two at our peril.
John, what do you say to young people that want to get into this business? Where will they be in 10, 20, and 30 years?
You should ask that, James, because that's what I'll be doing tomorrow morning. I'm a guest speaker at a broadcast meteorology class at Millersville University. And I'm going to start off by saying, how many of you think with your degree in hand there's a job waiting for you? I'm going to start that way. And then I'm going to give them a reality check. Well,
they're all going to start crying.
It's great to be passionate about something, but you need to know what the reality is. And the reality is we're graduating far too many students with a degree in meteorology. The growth in that area doesn't meet the growth in the field in terms of employment. It's about 5 to 1 or maybe even 10 to 1. So you have to have your eyes open. When you graduate, that job is not sitting there waiting for you to just walk through the door. So there has to be a way for you to market yourself in such a way that an employer cannot live without you. And that's the bottom line. You have a skill set, you have a breadth of experience, and you have a personality that an employer cannot live without. And that's your selling point. That is who you are, and that's how you get a job. Where are those jobs?
What's the biggest skill set that you would recommend, John? Let's say that I'm 21, about to graduate. Is it the ability to code? Is it social media skill? Is it what added skill do you recommend for young people that are going to come out with that degree in meteorology? What will set them apart?
Well, these students today are so social media savvy that I don't think we need to worry about that. But that is where our market is going. Television is changing, and it's becoming YouTubeized, I guess you might want to say. It's videos on YouTube. There's so many. That's where the growth is. It's in the private sector that is not necessarily television. So the skill set you need to bring to be able to market yourself is, in addition to the fundamental knowledge of meteorology, you're bringing to that the social media savvy. You need to know how to use GIS or a way to plot data on an Earth map so that you can understand how things are changing and where you are in the universe. I think that's critically important. I tell students, take a business class, take a class on economics, take a class on government, policy, because our field is totally integrated now. It's applied. When I was a student, what's applied mean? Everything's applied now.
You're forecasting, right? That's applied meteorology.
Yeah, well, everything is applied now. It's how you're going to take that knowledge and put it to a problem.
It's interesting you mentioned that, and one of the things I'm thinking is you're talking about that, number one is I look back, and granted I dual degreed, so I have a degree in computer science, so the coding piece of that was there, but the idea that I don't feel like I got enough statistics. Yeah. Especially for folks doing the weather service route or the research route. The one class in statistics that I had barely scratched the surface of what I really could use on a regular basis, even as a meteorologist in a television station. And I think, if I had any more of a research bent or had more time to do it, I'd miss it that much more. But
I agree with you. I completely agree with you, Nate. And I was thinking the same thing recently, that I wish, and I took statistics, and I wish there was more, or I could take more of an applied statistics, especially now when you get in the field and you're actually, in here seeing it. No, I think that would be extremely beneficial. Maybe the COMET program people can come up with that.
Yeah. The other thing is that we talk about social media, we talk about TV, and these are all very important things. I think 20 years from now, the students graduating this year and going into TV or going into meteorology, I think they're going to be dealing with a social media thing like the old industry. There's going to be something else. I don't know what it is, but we can't. The danger is we see the new thing and we latch on to the new thing as if it will be the last thing, and it will not. There will be something else that comes behind it, and what we need to do, you have to cut through the channel. The way we get from us to them, it was the newspaper, then it was radio, then it was TV, then it was the web, then it's social and mobile. There's going to be something else 10 or 15 years down the road, and you have to be good enough of a communicator to get past the actual the tactic that you're using in order just to communicate with people about things that they care about.
Excellent point.
That transcends how you're doing it, whether it's TV or web or mobile or everything else. You have to get past the actual method and get to what it is you're saying, how you're saying it, how you're connecting with people. Social media probably will be there in 20 years, but there's going to be something else we're doing. We don't even know what it is yet. It hasn't been invented. It hasn't been conceived in a college dorm room yet. We didn't. 15 years ago, we didn't know what Facebook was. What is this? And now it's blown up our industry.
I think the one thing that won't change.
What I say, I think you need to have a servant's heart where you're looking after the needs of your customers, your consumers, more than the needs that you have. And if you take care of them, if you're selling widgets or doing the weather or whatever, you're going to be okay. I see a lot of young people, and they just want to be these good-looking, blow-dried boobs on television. And if you think having white teeth and nice clothes and some slick hair, you're going to make, 6 figures and make all this money and everybody's going to love you. It doesn't work that way anymore. You've got to take care of the people that you're serving, and that requires sacrifice. It requires time. It requires doing things where you're not paid. And a lot of young people can't imagine that. You mean I'm going to do something to help somebody else where I'm not getting paid? Yeah, and if you don't, you have no hope in this business. And that's why I see a lot of young people, they won't work social media because they can't monetize that. I've spent an hour on Twitter answering questions. I need to be making $300 for that. It doesn't work that way. If you do it right, the money will follow. Which brings to mind the next question for you, everybody here. How do you handle this nonstop input from our consumers in handling that. People asking questions at 3 in the afternoon, 3 in the morning. They expect you to be there. They ask you. That's an honor that they came to you. They didn't go to somebody else. They came to you. I feel obliged to answer that. But the problem I have, and that most people I think have, it's time management. You know, most of us are married. We have families. We have priorities in life, and yet prior to a big storm, I could spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week answering questions through social media. So, Aubrey, how do you handle that?
It's something I'm still working on. It's something, you know, when you're off on the weekend and you're trying to, you know, just do things, and your phone beeps and you're trying to manage those messages, and it's, you know, and I hate to say it, sometimes I do answer them, sometimes I don't always get to them. On the weekends, I have a habit of not being around my phone, and it's honestly wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful, and I kind of get to it when I get to it. Now, obviously, there's, you know, a major storm system, you know, I'm going to be, you know, a little bit more on top of things, but I don't get Facebook messages from my WHSV page on my phone. I don't have the Facebook Messenger app, so I don't get those messages. And when I respond to people, I let them know that I don't get the Facebook messages on my phone, and I respond to them when I can. You know, it is, and I've been trying to make that that change and take that time and my time off, but still balance the work, because weather never stops. But I have been doing a better job, I think, actually taking that break and taking that time. Whereas I know some other people, I mean, I don't even know when Brad Panovich sleeps. I mean, in the morning, at midnight, you know, 7 a.m. It's constant, you know, and I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Good for you.
And right, and again, that's your choice, and I think
Right.
that's part of the problem I deal with. At some point, I need to spend a couple of hours with my wife at dinner or at a movie without having to look at, you know, phones and. Goodness, you know, in a situation like today where we might have some winter weather issues. But during this show, I'll have 30 questions when I get off. People are expecting answers, and at some point you have to give up. Obviously, during a big event, I can't do it. You know, dozens and dozens and dozens just scroll by within seconds. But this is a problem. You know, if you're going to do this job right, you're not going to sleep a lot. And you're going to have to make some sacrifices, and a lot of that's in this lack of sleep. John, how do you handle social media?
Not quite the same way that the rest of you are, because I'm not full-time employed in television. So I do have some of those kinds of issues. I get emails and then texts and those kinds of things, Facebook questions. But I also have to respond to my full-time consulting business. So I have attorneys contacting me. I have insurance professionals who need answers pretty quick, and that's where the money's coming from. So
Yeah.
I actually, you know, I got to respond to those folks. And at the same time, I'm getting messages from my family here in the Mid-Atlantic or the Northeast saying, what about this snow that I hear that's coming?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a balancing act, and I must say that one has to not only prioritize and time manage, but you have to pick what's most important to you. And at some point, I just say, no, I can't. I cannot do it right now. And what I also tell young people is, I have a me time, my own time. I protect that time, and that's when I exercise. And I do it every day. I either run or bike, or I spin in the wintertime, but I protect that. And you know what? It's how I revitalize. I don't get a lot of sleep either, but boy, does that sure help.
Nate, how do you handle social media and time management?
If you ask my wife, she would say badly. You know, I answer, I'm on when I'm on, and I'm not when I'm not. And
so when are you on?
More than my wife would like. You know, if I'm at work, I'm paying attention to it, keeping an eye on it. If I am not doing anything else actively, then I'm probably pulling out the phone every now and again. You know, I don't get the same kind of volume of requests or questions that you do. And so for me, I think it's a little easier to manage. But there are times where I turn it off. not nearly as many as I think certain folks would like. But the other thing that's interesting, and something that I think a lot of companies are running into, they're trying to find a way to deal with this, is at the end of the day, let's say you work for a TV station. Well, the TV station makes money by selling ads on its website and selling ads on its television air. It doesn't make money directly from social media. Now, I think there's a recognition that some social media is good and you want to be there, but you still have to take care of the monetized platforms first. You have to feed your own mouths in house first before you tend to the folks on social, or find a way to do both at the same time, where you're answering the questions. And one of the things that we do in our run up to a big winter storm or a hurricane is we'll schedule these live chats that go on our website. And so all of these questions, we have a way to funnel all these questions into a place that draws them in to our website, right. Gives us the sort of the credit for people being there and engaging with us. We get to engage with people, we get to answer the questions that they want answered, and we get the ad revenue and whatnot that keeps the lights on. It doesn't mean we stop answering questions on social, just gives us another way to do it in a way that helps feed the bottom line, if you will. Is that the only way? Certainly not. Is it the best way? I'm not sure, but it's what we're doing. But outside of that, when I'm not doing the chats, I'm answering questions as best I can. I answered a few on Sunday morning, about the freezing rain that we had here in North Carolina that wound up canceling church and whatnot for a lot of folks here. I think that you get to a certain size and you almost need a deputy or somebody, a team of people. I mean, you look at some of these big celebrities with, 1 million followers, and they're getting peppered with questions. And then they've got the whole cadre of people that are answering in their, answering it under their name in a sense, or trying to manage that in some way, shape, or form. And that's unlikely for most of us. James, you probably could make a case that you need to have a team to get all those questions answered. If management ever decided that was something that was really critical for you, or that every question got answered.
Yeah, and the way it works with me, if people are going to ask the SPAN account something, it needs to be SPAN that answers. If we're going to do the group thing, it needs to be a TV station Twitter account or something. And the other thing, the chats, I think that you're smart to bring people to the website, but it's like I'm in a chat 24/7. It's like mine never stops on Twitter.
But the thing about it is, you are building notoriety, you are building your followers. And your situation, I think, is a little different for reasons that But if for a typical meteorologist working at a typical TV station, they're drawing a salary from the television station for what they do, and so the television station expects to get the return on that investment. They're not WRAL doesn't exist to build the NSJ brand. They exist to build the WRAL brand. Now, that may involve building the NSJ brand to a certain extent, but I have people above me that are looking at that balance to make sure that that's a fair balance. And I feel like we've done a pretty good job of riding that here. There are other folks at other TV stations that would disagree, that would say the talent, all the talent pages need to point straight back to the TV station, that there's no individual talent outside of the TV, and own the social media accounts and stuff like that. And I think that's too far off on the other end of the field.
We opened a
Bill
chat.
Murray, how do you handle social media? Go ahead, John.
I'm just going to mention that we opened a chat during Hurricane Sandy when that was affecting the Mid-Atlantic, and then the center of Sandy actually came almost over my house in South Central Pennsylvania. And what we did was we had myself and another guy just doing Q&A on air, and one of the guys would ask me a question: what do you think, what's Sandy doing, and why do you think it's happening? So we would go back and forth like that. Then I would jump off and I'd get on the chat room and I'd answer questions on the chat, and we engaged so many people that way. It was one of the best things we ever did. Bill?
Yeah, James, for me, working on the blog, primarily social media is like a megaphone pointing to me, because there is no time when you're writing on the blog. When you're putting up 25 posts in a shift or something like that, you have no time. You're taking basically the information, curating it and getting it back out for people who want to read it in that format. So, social media becomes a source for me rather than an outlet. Now, my WX Historian account, which I haven't worked on much recently, but I'm about to start again, was really a day-by-day, consistent, year in, year out, little dose of weather history. And, that's how I used it was, to take this information that I've collected over the years and get it back out in small, 140 character, little pieces every day. And, it was good enough to get, a nice little following. And, I always enjoyed writing that. And maybe I'll get back to that real soon.
And let me ask you a question, Bill, while we're kind of going off on a different tangent here. You're bivocational, and a lot of people are very interested in you. But because of that, because a lot of people have a real passion for weather. They love it. But yet they are in a career and they have a family and they just can't drop everything and go back to college and start over. What advice do you give somebody that wants to kind of be like you, that has one career and still is able to do weather professionally?
Well, James, you probably know this story, but a lot of our audience probably doesn't. A lot of our panelists don't. But, I was in the hotel business, and our friend here in Birmingham, Jerry Tracy, who is at the NBC affiliate, approached me. When he moved here from the Weather Channel, he actually stayed at the hotel that I, was running, and I got to meet him. Well, somebody who worked at the Weather Channel, like John Scala, was a celebrity. And, I went up to the television station on the night that the tornado hit the Greyhound Park in West Memphis, Arkansas, or came very close to it at least. I think that was 1987 maybe. And, I actually got to, watch Jerry do the weather and helped him. And he gave me some advice that's always stuck to me. He said, Bill, you're interested in weather, you love weather, keep it a passion, but don't quit your day job, until you're ready. And I did that. And, the offshoot, James, was that little weather facts. When I started working at the television station, the CBS affiliate in Birmingham in 1991, I came up with that on one of those late night, severe weather events. I came up with this one-page weather facts for hotels that, went out to, lots of hotels. And eventually we grew it, John Olshoe and I, to about 1,200 hotels. And, we sold it to a major weather conglomerate. And
they got rich.
Well, I don't know about that, but it was a nice little payday for what we had worked so hard on, and in the process, I think that's the advice is to don't just limit yourself, like all the other panelists have said tonight. Don't limit yourself to one ideal. Be ready for whatever, and follow that ingenuity and that passion of innovation, and create something that somebody needs. Find that niche and fill it. And like you said, James, if you do it right, the money will follow.
You mentioned something, Bill, that I think is really important, and you talked about a niche, and this is something that marketing wizard Seth Godin has been talking about for years, and Kevin's talked about it. The idea of broadcasting, there's still value in it. It's not dead, it's not bankrupt, but it's certainly not a growth industry like it was 30, 40 years ago. On the other hand, you have, and I'm for those watching, by the way, I'm holding my daughter, and I'm paranoid about that. So that's why I've got the test pattern up. She's trying to eat my my earbuds. I'm holding the baby. So if you hear a baby, that's what I'm doing. But anyway, he talks about you've got to find your tribe. You've got to find people that are as passionate about whatever it is you are doing as you are, and then find a way to get them passionate about it and get them to engage with you. And that's probably a better way to do it than to try and be everything to everybody. And so if you look at some of the the best Twitter accounts in terms of high engagement amongst maybe not a huge number of followers, but maybe more than average, would be something like a NASCAR WX man, Brian Newdorf out in Idaho. He's a big NASCAR nut. And he's got a huge following. It's something that it's an intersection of two things that he's passionate about, and he's got a nice tribe going with it. And it's the kind of thing that could probably make him some money if he's doing the TV thing out there in Idaho. But it's something that I think it's money waiting to be made. He's got to figure out how to do it. It's not easy, to be sure, but that I think is probably a better future than trying to make $1 million on TV. The industry is not set up like that.
As the Teletubbies episode continues, thank you for listening. But Aubrey's burning up in this booth. I feel bad for Aubrey. Now, let me throw this question out. I wrote a little letter to my people last week. How do you guys handle haters, trolls, and know-it-alls? Let's start with Aubrey in a hot edit booth, who's probably really cranky.
I'm dying in here. I'm about to take off my boots and throw some water. I mean, and I don't mean to get racy in here, but jeez.
Wow. This show could get really good.
WeatherBrains After Dark.
Title.
That's what I was thinking.
I'm very fortunate in this area. I honestly do not get a lot of it. I certainly get my share, but talking with other female meteorologists and you guys and other people, I do not get it nearly as bad as a lot of other people, and I am so thankful because I don't know that I would still be able to do this if I did. And there's a lot of people, for example, like Ginger Z. I mean, girl has some thick skin. I mean, I don't know if I could take some of this stuff that she gets day in, day out, and just haters. I mean, just absolute hate mongers. So I'm very thankful that I don't get a lot of it, and when I do, for example, last week actually on my page, some woman wrote, "Are you pregnant? You're absolutely glowing." And I wrote back kindly, and I said, "I think that's very rude." I said, "I think that's the most inappropriate and rudest comment I think I've ever gotten." I said, "I would refrain from ever saying that to anyone unless you are completely sure." And I almost said it was none of her business anyways, but I didn't. And then that person wrote back and said, does your CEO of I can't believe your CEO of WHSB lets you talk like that to viewers. And I thought, I'm not in the wrong by any means. So I will be the first to call someone out politely, and kind of not stick it to them, but when we misforecast a storm, hey, what happened to the 3 to 5 inches? Yep, I hear what you mean. We should have tripled snow totals. What are you going to do? So I do respond, but it's responding and going, hey, I see your comment, because sometimes that's just what
I think. Whether people have to be a little sassy to survive. I mean, to survive, you got to have a little sass,
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's what it is. And it's sometimes people just don't think people see their comments, and it's like, yeah, I see your comment, and I see what you're doing there, and you know what? Go whatever. But that's
the major school system in Wake County, the Wake County Public School System, has a Twitter account. It's WCPSS for Wake County Public School System. If you want to talk about needing some sass, you want to talk about being on Twitter as an organization, or in a sense a brand, but dealing with your clientele and your constituency all at the same time in a medium that is more native, that they're more native to than you are. I think they do a masterful job of really balancing that. We're going to put some information out there. We're going to engage with people, and we're going to have fun with it. We're going to be a little sassy with it. Not everybody can pull that off. I think that the idea that you need to have sass. I think you need to have a thick skin. Different people exhibit that in different ways, and some people don't. Quite frankly, don't have. I'm one of these people. I can't be. The sass thing for me, it just doesn't come off right. It comes off either as rude or as out of touch, and neither of those are what I intend. And so I just don't. I can't play that game. They do a really good job, I think, of playing with that and rolling with it and recognizing what they're trying to do. And I think they do a pretty good job with it. And they've got something like 80,000 followers for a school system. I mean, that's nuts, right? But they're there, and they do a really good job with it. We need to get them verified, by the way. If anybody from Twitter is watching, they're dealing with some fake accounts, and we need to get that locked down. But I think they have fun with it. For us here, one way we deal with it is we address the concerns. I mean, yes, the haters and the trolls, sometimes they hate and troll. Some of them are actually raising issues in language that, may not be professional, it may not be classy, but they may be pointing something out that we don't want to see or we don't want to look at. You blew a forecast. Maybe I did. Maybe I thought I did better with that forecast than I actually did. And I can sit back and take all that feedback in. Let's filter out all of the hate, but let the content of that come through, the point they're trying to make, and see if there's something to it. And what we found is sometimes there is, and sometimes there's, we thought we did a better job of communicating what was a good forecast when in actuality we didn't. And we,
Right, and I agree. Constructive criticism is the only way you'll get better. And that's a whole separate category. I'm talking trolls, haters, and know-it-alls. Those are apples and oranges here. But Kevin is here. Kevin's got a very limited amount of time. First off, Kevin, we're talking about how do you deal with trolls, haters, and know-it-alls. You probably don't have any yet, being in a new market. Huh?
No, luckily that is true. I have to say I haven't really had too much of that to deal with. And this may sound trite, but this is a very nice, polite, respectful little town. I'm sure they'll come, but yeah, everybody else has them. I just haven't really had too much of that yet.
I'm sure somebody's going to call you a jabroni here in just a minute. And I know Dr. John has no haters. But Kevin, tell your American. Let's go American Airlines. We got time for you. Go.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm not ready for that. Well, so the recap was we were. I got into a Twitter thing with them because they were using the Weather Channel hashtags with the storm names, and I said, "What up?" And they kind of went round and round and round. And go back and look in the show notes. I think you can find from 2 episodes ago. I put up a link to the Storify that I made because they were giving these polite non-answer answers, and as we've acknowledged many times on this program, if you give me a non-answer answer, it makes my head explode, and I just want to dig in a little bit more. So I kept trying to do that. And so it eventually kind of went behind the scenes. They said, okay, well, we're going to find out more about whether this, we use them as policy, or I was asking if it was an advertising deal, and blah, 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 blah. And they said they'd get back to me. And it took about a week, but here's the thread. And these were all direct messages. The earlier thread went on in public, but these are direct messages behind the scenes. Kevin, following back up on storm names, we don't have an agreement with the Weather Channel, but we do use names on occasion to help differentiate between the storms. We double-checked, and it's allowable to reference them. Thanks for asking. I said, thanks for the answer. The Weather Channel names conflict with National Weather Service policy. Doesn't using them occasionally create more confusion? They said, you're welcome. It hasn't caused issues thus far, but we realize the potential and will adjust if needed. Thanks again. I said, by what measure has it not caused problems? Television meteorologists and National Weather Service across the country report confusion. Thanks. Then they say, it's helpful to us internally. And this is where it starts getting me a little agitated, and I understand they're being polite and they got a lot to deal with, but to say we use them internally is blatantly wrong because they're not using them internally. They're using them on their public Twitter feed. So that's just not paying attention or intentionally trying to divert me or confuse the situation, which just isn't very nice. So I say thanks for the reply. Then you will not use externally going forward, ? Our apologies for any miscommunication. It's possible we may use them externally. After they just said we only use them internally. I said, colleagues and I have a podcast, WeatherBrains, talk great deal of social media to a 10,000 plus a week audience. Would you join us, please? Very interested. Thanks. Thanks for the invite. Please provide the specifics and we'll forward your kind invitation on. Thanks. WeatherBrains podcast, Monday nights, 8:30 Central Time, via Google Hangouts, meteorologist hosts, 10,000 listeners, many television meteorologists, much social discussion. Thanks for thinking of us and the invitation to join. Best of luck with the podcast and have a great weekend, which is not an answer to the question again.
Just say no. Just say no.
Exactly. Will you join us one week, please? Then the response came back, we're unable to join you. Thanks again. I said, please reconsider. Social media is an important topic that we talk very seriously about. American Airlines has a difficult job in this space. We feel sharing info between different disciplines or enterprises would be helpful. and they say, "We thank you for the invite. We have a great love of social media as well, Kevin," which again is another non-answer answer. So at that point, I've not communicated with them any further. I really, on one hand, genuinely interested in an open discussion with somebody in this position in a different enterprise than ours, discussing social media. It's there. It's a thing. We have to deal with it. And I think sharing amongst, ideas amongst different organizations is a fantastic idea. On the other hand, with these guys, they're in an industry, as I think I mentioned 2 weeks ago, it's a very delicate thing to do this. They have a gajillion people that they have to deal with. That doesn't scale on a one-to-one conversation, but they're giving it a try, and I guess I give them some credit for that. But the tone of these public and private messages is misdirection and diversion, which I think it becomes patronizing at some point. And I think that's unfortunate. And Nate will comment on this in a minute because he commented on, I guess, his wife's experience as well. But I think that they're kind of bordering on being patronizing about it. And that just becomes really, really frustrating. So I applaud them for trying, especially on a giant global platform. But I wonder if they're being effective or if they're just almost bordering on being snotty about it. And I don't mean to, if they're not being snotty, I don't mean to call them that. But what I would love to see, if anybody wants to, politely, they are at American Air. And anybody over the next week that wants to send them a tweet or tweet to them, hey, you ought to come on WeatherBrains, something like that, social media importance, something like that, to send a message. I applaud this. Not my decision to do that, but I think James will let me, because I don't want to have them come on and I want to berate them. I want to have a significant discussion about social media and the use of it, and secondarily their tone, which kind of bugs me a little bit. So anybody listening to the podcast this week, it's at American Air, and if you want to just give them a little nudge, and darn it, you better be polite about it, or I'm going to come after you. I think that would be important. So I'm done.
Well, what you have to remember, Kevin, is they're not there to do what you've engaged them in doing. They put those people there to do strictly customer service, and that's all they're there for. And you're their worst nightmare with what you came at them with. So they're there to handle the guy who said, American Airlines stinks. They lost my luggage and blah blah blah. And I sat on the tarmac for 2 hours. And that's what they're there for, is to placate people.
Okay, well, wait. I got to stop you there.
You were not.
Wait, no. I got to
placated.
stop you on that point, because I can't. This is a fundamental difference in a change that's going on in our industry as well, the broadcasting.
I know. I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, but what you said. But you said they're there to do customer service. If you're going to work out on an open platform like that, you have no authority to tell people what they can and cannot do on it. So to say they're there to do X and that I can't engage them to do Y is wrong.
No, that's not my point. My point is that's not what they were equipped to do. They were set there to do customer service and to be a listening post for their brand. It's like every other major company, especially in travel. That's what their job is. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I just think that you've brought basically a howitzer to a penknife fight, and they're not really prepared for that. And I'm glad you did. I'm glad you engaged them, because I think you're embracing a bigger issue, and they're playing with something they really shouldn't be playing with. And
and I think Kevin, your engagement, you're asking about something that is, it's a supervision level. I mean, I'm looking through. Right. If we're gonna harass them if we're gonna talk about them, I felt like I needed to scan through and get a sample of the kinds of things they're engaging with. And in reality, I mean, I follow a number of airlines on Twitter, and they are actually doing a pretty good job. I mean, you look at some of these.
I agree, and I said that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you look at these exchanges, and it's.
You guys can't come on here and tell me that they can't do a particular thing on this open platform just because this is what they want to do.
No. I'm going to tell you, Kevin. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's not what they were put there to do.
But they have to deal with it.
Well, they should, and their company should approach that, and they should openly come and talk to us about this issue, because what you've done is bring a serious issue in our field, to attention of a company that has quite a few followers. I mean, hundreds of thousands, I'm sure.
1.05 million. But Bill, I'm gonna circle back around to something I said about half an hour ago, and Kevin wasn't. I don't think he was here. American Airlines, for us, weather is everything.
Mm-hmm.
For American Airlines, it is important. It is very important to their business model, but it is not the thing they are passionate about. Right. Flying and aviating and moving people from point A to point B is the thing that they are passionate about. Weather allows them to do it or makes it difficult for them to do it or prevents them from doing it, much in the same way that weather prevents me from taking my kid to soccer practice if it's raining. But in reality, they're not as passionate about it as we are. And so when we engage them, we're taking, it's like you said, it's taking a howitzer to a penknife fight. And we show up with a howitzer and they're going, guys, it's storms. So in a sense, I think what we need to do is we need to bring them on, enroll them on board with this, and we can't expect them to be as passionate about it or care as much about it as we do. For them, they may look at this and go, well, this is an internal squabble. This is between you and a competitor of yours, and no offense to you guys, but the names help us. The double speak back and forth with Kevin aside.
No, completely disagree. Completely disagree, because if you look at the tone of the answers, they are absolutely designed to not answer the question, which is misdirection.
There's no question.
But that's classic. The person you're dealing with isn't in a position to answer the question, and that's what they're trained to do. They don't want to leave you with.
But we can only assume that this was elevated. And I completely understand that there are some number of people sitting at American Airlines tasked with non-objectively trying to smooth out rough spots or answer questions within their Twitter stream. But we also assume, based on what they said, that this was elevated to a different level.
Yeah. I mean, how many people go to the ticket counter at their favorite airline after they get off a flight and say, that was a great flight, the captain was funny, the flight attendants were fantastic. It happens if you have the Miracle on the Hudson, but the only time that people ever talk to the airline when they're not booking a ticket is when they're ripping them to shreds for something that 9 times out of 10 the airline has zero control over. I have, and we've all done it. We've all been in the airport watching some poor gate agent get ripped to shreds about a weather delay, and somebody's got to get somewhere. And I get it.
But I argue your premise that people don't go and give. I see people give compliments to a pilot or a flight crew or a ticket agent all the time.
Yeah.
But I think the point is not as much as they complain.
I understand that, but you can't say people don't go and get,
And people are.
I'm not saying it was in balance, but you can't say that it was.
And all I'm saying is it's way out of balance. I mean, you look at the kinds of things that they're fending off and whatnot. A lot of they're answering questions. They're looking up records. They're actually trying to engage people with the thing that their core competency, with the thing they know about. This naming winners, the use of the winter storm names and whatnot.
No. I've moved past that. What I'm talking about, I am, because what I'm talking about here is the exchange that went on that was intentionally. I hope that you would agree with this. They were intentionally not answering questions.
Yeah, they wanted you to go away. They were hoping you were.
I think they
That's
wanted
exactly
you to go
right.
away.
But so why not just say? Then why not just say, you know what? We don't want to deal with this. But to give contradictory answers is of no use.
Yeah.
I think giving contradictory answers. I think giving contradictory answers like that is antagonistic.
And I would be willing to bet that it was different people.
It's almost non-human answers.
Yeah,
they're almost giving like a script answer. They weren't going,
right.
Let's look at this. Hey, let me get back to you. Can I get your email?
Right.
It was, hey, okay, thanks.
That's
okay,
right.
okay, here, thank you. You're welcome. I mean, it was very scripted. And why can't they be like Nate was talking about the school system account? You got to have a personality to it.
But I'll tell you one of the reasons why is it doesn't scale. Right? They are a global company, and they can't answer the questions of every single person on Twitter. It just doesn't scale. And that's what I want to have the conversation. I don't give a toot whether they're using the weather.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't. I really don't. I did what because you know what? I don't because, I mean, yes, because we've discussed it, but go back to my original question. My original question was not, will you stop using these names? My original question to them was, is there some sort of marketing or advertising agreement in which you folks are using these, or that you have agreed to use these? That was what I asked first, and then it went off in all these other directions.
All right, well, we've got to take a time out here. It is coming up on 13 until the top of the hour, and some of us have to do some weather, and Nate's going to fly the ship here, but I'm going to roll, and by the way, Brian is out. We do not have a Professor Peters. We do have Tony Rice in the astronomy report. We'll come back with weather roundup, Nate's news, fog bank, picks of the week, email inbox, much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, I'm Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook for the week of March 2nd. Yesterday marked the 53rd anniversary of the landing of the Soviet Venera 13 spacecraft. It landed on the surface of Venus near the equator. The spacecraft was the first human-built item to reach another planet's surface. The lander survived about 2 hours under the crushing atmosphere, was able to send back some images showing an orange-brown bedrock beneath a deep yellow sky. The lander also recorded temperatures of 854 degrees Fahrenheit and an atmospheric pressure in the neighborhood of 9,000 hectopascals, or about 89 times that of Earth. While the Sun is closer to Venus and illuminates the entire sky, the planet's thick carbon dioxide atmosphere makes the Sun difficult to make out. Our Sun isn't the yellow that your crayon drawing that's probably still in your parents' refrigerator might suggest. Its light covers the entire visible spectrum, so it combines to produce white light when viewed from space. Our atmosphere changes that color to yellow about midday and closer to red sometimes at sunset. It can even have a slightly blue cast when viewed at solar noon, when the least amount of atmosphere is between you and the Sun. Listeners to WeatherBrains probably know well the Rayleigh effect that scatters blue light and gives our sky its color here on Earth. But did you know that that process works in reverse on Mars? Here on Earth, water vapor and other gases scatter the short wavelengths of blue light, creating our blue skies. On Mars, the atmosphere is filled with particles of dust from the planet's surface. This does an excellent job of scattering red light. This produces a pinkish hue to the sky, and sunsets that have a beautiful, some would say Carolina, blue glow. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
All right, we're doing the show here on March the 2nd, 2015. Dr. John, how cold is it in Pennsylvania?
Not too bad right now, James. Still got a little bit of a wind outside. We're staying in the 20s. I had, in February, 4 days of sub-zero lows, and as we were saying before, February is now the coldest February on record up here. And we've got that cold air at the ground, and we've got the next storm system that Aubrey was mentioning, and we're going to be looking at freezing rain tomorrow. This is another icy issue for us before we finally get into the rain late Wednesday.
Aubrey, what about weather in your neck of the woods in the Shenandoah Valley?
They've got a winter weather advisory for us, but I don't see us getting very much sleet tomorrow at all. We're very dry. I think we're going to be kind of in the donut hole that the Shenandoah Valley is typically known for, where the precip pretty much goes all around us. That's just for tomorrow. But then we have rain coming Wednesday night, and when that cold air comes in, I'm waiting for the 0Z GFS to come in, and it's just starting. And the GFS has been doing it's actually my model of choice. I'm not a fan of the almighty Euro. And the GFS has been doing very, very well, especially the updated version. So,
so who's your competition? Because I'm watching them now, because they probably love the Euro.
We really don't have competition here, actually.
That's why you can love the GFS, right?
Yeah, it actually does but you know what? The GFS does very well in our area, and it's been doing much better than the Euro since winter started. Euro was doing pretty good when winter started, and then it tanked, and it hadn't been doing very well. So I don't know. I'm partial to the underdog. What can I say?
You know, the GFS is running at this 13-kilometer, grid resolution now, which is nice. I mean, it's
very well.
It's performed very well down here as well. But no, we got a storm system. Kevin, go.
No, where's Bill go?
He had to
He
bail.
hung up on us. You made him mad or something. He bails out every week now. I don't know what's up with this guy.
Well, no, it dawned on me.
Every week he leaves.
I went over to do some graphics, and it dawned on me. I said, "What's?" And he go back and go back and check the tape. Bill turned on his years and years honed behind the desk hotel manager dealing with an agitated guest voice. Did you hear it? It was
exactly.
That's what happened. He went into this, but that's the exact same thing, right? Yeah. There was this. I mean, now Bill makes a passionate argument on his things, but there was this tone that American Airlines was giving. It was the same because it's a hospitality thing, right? That's how you deal with crazy customers like me.
It's a try not to get shot mentality. Unfortunately, that's what we
exactly
need.
Right. That's exactly right.
Especially for the guys in the hotel rooms because they don't have TSA screening out all the guns at the front door.
But he left. So, and what have you done to my Twitter thing, Nate? You said, what? Well, he mentioned something about truth bombs. That's the name of this show, by the way, Truth Bombs.
No, it's something about WeatherBrains After Dark.
WeatherBrains at night.
I thought it was dark. Yeah. Well, because there's a million Twitter things now because of something that Nate tweeted out about I'm dropping truth bombs.
Well, you go back and listen to the stuff you were saying at the beginning of the podcast, and
I know.
Get it. So.
I know, I got it.
Yeah.
All right, hey, let's do I'm the lead here in the news, so I got to finish these audio segments.
You're no better than Bill Murray. Just bailing out.
Well, I thought you were done.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just hanging up on you guys. So I'm going to run the fog bank.
We won't.
Then I'm going to roll the letters intro, and then Aubrey's going to take it, and then Nate's going to figure out where to go from here. But we're going to roll the fog bank, and then we're going to do the email inbox, and we'll keep on going. So don't go away.
Greetings and felicitations.
Hello, WeatherBrains listeners. You can find these links at skydaver.blogspot.com. Timeanddate.com has a nice chart to help with identifying all the time zones around the world. NOAA Weather Partners has a new video in their bite-sized science series, The Facets Project. FACET is an acronym for Forecasting a Continuum of Environmental Threats. SpaceWeather.com has a fairly unusual aurora photo this week. A lenticular cloud photobombed the Moon, Mars, and Venus at Astronomy Picture of the Day. Finally, NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory picked up a solar flare this morning, March 2nd, and SpaceWeather.com has the photo. Thanks for listening. Skydaver out.
Live long and prosper.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
All right. I'm just responding to a question about tomorrow's system on Facebook. So our letter, let me see if I can screen share. The only thing that we have in comes from Steve the Jazz Man, and let's see, this is an article on the tornado-shaped building that's proposed in the Tulsa skyline. Yeah. So supposedly they're wanting this to become like a weather museum and research center, but I don't know, engineering-wise, I'm kind of, I have questions. But also at the same time, I mean, engineering-wise, what would you do with? I don't know. I don't get it. What do you guys think?
They've already built that building. It's called Swirl, and it's on the campus of the University of Alabama at Huntsville. They've already got the tornado-shaped thing in a building. It already exists.
How tall is it?
I don't know, but it's structurally sound, and they're doing research in it, which I don't know. I saw the pictures. I can't imagine that the folks in Tulsa are particularly excited about it.
I'm gonna have to see an okay. I don't know if I see.
Imagine having a tornado permanently burned into your skyline shots.
Right.
In a tornado-prone area.
Exactly. What does it say to the people who have been affected like this, or from a large tornado?
Your nightmare will return every time you go downtown.
Right. Well, it's not bad enough that they're reminded of, trees down and snapped and, no trees in their yard or something. So it's, no, I get that. So that's all we have from the email inbox. So it's been a slow week here. You guys have been easy on me. So if you have an email you'd like to send us, email at weatherbrains.com. Send us your guest suggestions. Send us your show suggestions. Anything you like or don't like about the show, send us a fun link. We're always looking for new and exciting picks of the week, especially send those to me right here. I could use a couple of those. And you can find us on the Facebook and the Twitter. WeatherBrains After Dark.
All right. WeatherBrains After Dark. Thank you, Aubrey, for the email segment. A couple of bits in the news category. Number one, the abstract period for the Conference on Broadcast Meteorology and Weather Warnings and Communication that'll be hosted in Raleigh, North Carolina. Beautiful downtown Raleigh, North Carolina, the first or second full week of June. Abstract deadline has closed. I have taken just a preliminary look at the abstracts for both of those conferences, and I'm even more excited about this conference than I was before. And those of you who know me and know how excited I was, that's going to be hard to believe, but it's going to be awesome. Make your plans now. Speaking of conferences, just in a few weeks, the National Tropical Weather Conference to be held at the Hilton Garden Inn on South Padre Island, Texas. Director of the Hurricane Center, three former directors of the Hurricane Center, Storm Surge Specialist, Dr. Philip Klotzbach from the Colorado State will all be speaking. You can check that out at hurricanecenterlive.com. Definitely check that out. Something else here. NOAA has started a photo contest focused on the weather. You can go check this out. It's a part of NOAA Heritage Week. It's open to the public, including professionals as well as Weather Service employees. You go to weather.gov/photo contest. And you will be playing for pride, not prize. There is no monetary award for this contest. And, oh, by the way, the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation and NOAA will have the right to use your photograph. Of course. So not only will you not get anything, but you may have your picture used by someone, not you, for no compensation whatsoever. So I know a lot of professional photographers who see that as a no-no. And that may limit their participation, but amateurs, jump right in and check that out. Finally, let's see, as I scan over the news wires, and that's all the news I've got. So if you have a news item for us, you can send it to me, email at weatherbrains.com. You can tweet me on Twitter as well. I'm at NSJ. So now let's move on to everybody's favorite segment. This is Picks of the Week. You can everybody will come up with a weather-related thing. It can be anything: a website, a book, a movie, a Netflix series, a new app.
Hey, Nate.
You found on the side of the road. That so long as it's weather-related.
Nate, can I go real quick?
Yeah.
We're just starting the news. She was on the gal, and I can't remember her name, that did the
Catherine Miles.
Yeah. The Superstorm Sandy. I was sick last week and down quite a bit of time, and I just wanted to plug her book again. It's my pick of the week, Superstorm Sandy. It's 9 days or 11 days inside the storm. Really good book. I highly recommend it. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Very good. All right. Kevin Selly's pick of the week. Dr. John Scala, a pick of the week from you, good sir.
Sure, Nate. 3 years ago today was a major outbreak across much of the Tennessee Valley down into the deep south. More than 600 reports of severe weather, including 160 tornadoes. And one of those tornadoes actually was an EF4 with a 49-mile long path length. And so my link is to the Louisville National Weather Service Forecast Office report on this event. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the link, there is a copy of a letter that was sent to the office from a 4th grade student at East Washington Elementary School. And that student's letter is there. Let me read it to you. Dear National Weather Service meteorologist, first of all, thank you very, very much for giving the warning and keeping us safe. I am glad that you were there to give us the warning. I think you are important and also a hero. Take a look at that.
Nice.
That's why we're in the business.
There you go. That's it. All right. Aubrey, a pick of the week from you, ma'am.
Mine is from livescience.com. It's actually an older article, but it's about very odd and kind of rare weather events. Some really cool pictures and just a fun article to read.
Sounds good. My pick of the week is a blog post I wrote for the WRAL Weather blog. Little self-promotion here, sort of going back to what we talked about earlier in the program, pointing back to a platform that pays my bills, and talking about meteorological spring. Every time we talk about meteorological spring or meteorological summer, I get some snide remark from Tony Rice, our resident astronomy buff, and so I felt like I needed to take a stab at explaining why that is. And I use a map from the Iowa Environmental Mesonet to back that up, and I've already gotten some comments about that, so feel free to check that out. And if you have anybody giving you snide comments about it, feel free to forward the link on. All right, taking a look at the calendar upcoming shows, we've got our educational special. We've talked about doing an educational show for a few months now, and I just haven't lined it up, but we've got that in the calendar for a couple of weeks hence. Author Kim Cross of What Stands in a Storm, this talking about the tornadoes in April of 2011, or 2011, that show coming up here in the next couple of weeks. And Weather on Capitol Hill, Tom Fahey from D.C. will be on to talk about policy and how weather affects that. We've got a number of other shows in the works. If you have a guest suggestion, feel free to shoot us that as well. You can do that in email at weatherbrains.com. Any final comments while we are here before we wrap it up? John, Aubrey, I know Kevin's had to duck out and do a little TV, and Bill bailed on us, and James has bailed on us too. Any other final comments before we wrap it up for this week?
I would like to say that, when I was looking at Twitter this week and looking at the American Airlines tweets and Kevin being passionate about, hashtag storm names and stuff, I was reminded when the dress and the llama drama issue became famous on Twitter. And the claim that it's a success on Twitter, so that makes it okay. So remember, hashtag Sharknado, hashtag color of the stupid dress, and hashtag llama drama may have been successful on Twitter for about 15 minutes, but it doesn't mean it's a good thing.
Agreed.
All right.
Agreed.
And that's what really grinds my gears tonight.
It really grinds my gears. Good stuff. All right. Well, this is Weather Brains. It's the all about the weather netcast. Occasionally we venture into airline brains and college football brains, but for the most part, it's all about the weather. We do it Monday nights, typically 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern time, as a live Google Hangout, and we turn the whole kit and caboodle into a podcast once a week. That is where most folks listen to us, and if you are listening via podcast, we certainly appreciate it. If you'd like to do the podcast bit, you can download it anytime at iTunes. You can also catch it on Stitcher, or you can find past episodes along with show notes, our picks of the week, links, and more, including links to our social media profiles. You can do that at weatherbrains.com. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're here so you can be here, or something like that. Until next week, I am not James Spann. Good night, and God bless.
Oh, that was a fun one.
That
All
was.
right.
All
We could have
right.
kept going.
Who needs a guest?
We got this.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a good week.
Guys.
Have a
Y'all
good
take
evening.
care.
See ya.
Bye.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Hey, oh, my earplug's sticking out here. Hey, that was a great show. You know, we need to do this more often, I think. Just have us. That was fun. Had a lot of things. In fact, we really ran long, and we had more things to talk about, so that was good. But I'm going to unplug here. It's kind of busy. We got some weather, and we'll have a longer post show next week. But thank you guys for watching. See you next week. Bye.